Welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Problem solvers have problems too. So here at Behind the Podium, I, Jared Cohen, and my co-host Alexander Ellis discuss the struggles, philosophies, demands, and practices of the coach, or said more broadly, health and wellness practitioner. To provide quality coaching is to enhance someone's life in an everlasting and unfolding way. This is not easy and requires a lot of due diligence and self-mastery on the part of the coach to be able to perform. So without further ado, join us as we dig deeper into the depths of the coach's mind. Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach, taking a closer look at the struggles, philosophies, practices, and demands of the coach, healthcare practitioner, or said more broadly, anyone in a role of providing help to another individual, or just trying to enhance someone else's life, whether that's in a formal or informal way. I am Jared Cohen. Joined with me is
Alexander Ellis.
And we are super pumped today to have our first official guest, Mr. Matt Cipolla. Matt, chime in, give us a little holler.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, this is a super honor. It's really exciting, particularly because I feel like this is a pretty uniformed group of ages. We're all, I think, within the same age range, and it's unique, I feel like, for representing this more up-and-coming generation of coaches, specifically those of us that have been around within this internet age, and what I feel like is one of the struggles with the internet age and coaching is that there's so much information out there, and it's easy for those of us who are really passionate about this job and this business and this process to maybe more easily get overwhelmed with that information overload. So that may very well be one of the topics today. But before I ramble on anymore, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and give the audience a Matt Cipolla pitch.
Sounds good. Well, I am. I guess I'll tell you where I'm at right now. I'm one of the coaches at CrossFit Los Angeles, which is in Santa Monica, California, and I have been working there for 4.5 years, I believe it's been now. I started off a very small role, just helping out there with wherever I could help, and that turned into more of an apprentice coaching development role, and turned into more responsibilities. And as I got more experience, turned into full-time coaching. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm the director of programming there. So I write all the programming for the classes. And I also currently, I founded the Mastery Method with Kenny Kane, the owner of CrossFit LA. And the Mastery Method is something that we use to help other gyms, coaches, and personal trainers and programmers. We help them think about complete fitness and think about how to create programs that can help their clients develop not just their bodies, but body, heart, and mind. And we teach them better coaching or different coaching philosophies that could help them also coach their clients and their students to think about their fitness more than just the physical, but to think of it as a more complete fitness, mind, body, heart approach.
Awesome.
So that's what I do.
And was CrossFit LA your first introduction to CrossFit?
Yes and no. I found CrossFit through my friend about 6.5 years ago. This would have been the end of 2009. He just brought me to his gym back east. I used to live in New England. I went back for a visit to visit family. My buddy's like, you got to check out this CrossFit thing. So we did a workout together, and I was blown away. It was very eye opening to anyone who's done CrossFit probably remembers their first CrossFit workout as something eye opening.
You're like, I thought I was fit. What happened?
Exactly. So that was my first exposure to it. That same friend came to LA to watch the CrossFit Games the following summer, and he stayed with me for a few days, and he made me go to the games. He's like, you have to come to the CrossFit Games. It's like, okay, whatever. I'll go to the CrossFit Games. And that was awesome. This was the earlier years of the CrossFit Games. I think it was the first time they had it at the
Home Depot Center. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. Center, yeah, what it was called back then. And how it was just so cool to see such incredible performances and fitness from just normal people.
Yeah.
They didn't seem like professional athletes back then. Obviously, it's changed a lot, and the CrossFit Games athletes seem a lot more out of reach now. But back then, it just looked, yeah, totally. Back then, it was just like, these are just regular people just crushing hard feats of physical strength, and it was awesome. I was so into it. So I started doing CrossFit just on my own at the UCLA gym using main site workouts, CrossFit.com. I'd look at the workouts, try my best to do them in just a normal gym setting. It was challenging, but that's how I got into it. And then I finally joined CrossFit Los Angeles at the end of 2011. And that's when I went full into the functional fitness world and CrossFit, and started doing it very consistently, and actually had coaches' eyes on me, which made a huge difference, and a community of people around me who were pursuing it in the same way I was. And that's kind of how it all started.
That's really cool. And it's unique, I bet, for somebody to have totally started at one place as their original stomping grounds, and to still be there in such a different role, and while also the gym has taken on various evolutions and transitions. A little retrospectively, how would you say nowadays your perspective on CrossFit and even larger coaching differ than when you first started coaching, or even when you were first introduced as just coming in as somebody that wanted to be a participant of this fitness modality?
I think so you're asking, like, how's my perspective now on fitness and CrossFit different than it was then?
Yeah. Is there, I'm curious kind of what that transition has been for you, both in terms of the points and times in which you kind of changed roles to, someone that was, I'm assuming, just attending as a member, to then, going through that process of where, hey, now I'm responsible for other people. And now also in conjunction with, you mentioned the mastery method, do you look at this fitness modality as well as this competitive sport aspect in a different manner? Where are your thoughts nowadays with the changes that have happened externally, as well as, your internal evolution with the sport, as well as your role in the gym?
Yeah, totally. I think my evolution and my changes has been very closely lined up with the evolution of my gym as a whole, and that's just because I've been I'm so closely tied to that gym. As that gym's evolved, I've evolved, and I've learned a lot there. So when I first started getting really into CrossFit and really attending the gym regularly, I think the way I kind of first approached the workouts was, how good was I at a workout? And there wasn't much more to it. Like, I was really good at that workout. Oh, okay, I'm going to be better at the workout next time. And I think that came a lot from this idea of always tracking progress and being competitive with yourself or with those around you, because those are two really great ways to improve yourself and improve your fitness. But I also think it's a little bit there's more to fitness than just that.
Right.
And over the course of time, and it's been a very gradual evolution, and over the course of time, I kind of look at a workout now not as how good can I be at this workout or how good will I perform it, but how well can I work out, and what can that do for my life, and what can it do for my fitness, and why is fitness important? I always knew it was important, but I didn't know why. It's like, the stronger you are, the better. The fitter you are, the better. The healthier you are, the better. So I want to be as fit as possible. I want to be fitter than you, Jared.
Oh yeah. We should all strive for that.
I think also like what you're saying about, instead of being goal oriented, like, how well did I do at this workout, enjoying the process and the journey, it takes a lot of the stress out of it. I find that for myself as well. It's just like being in that moment, in that workout, and looking at the bigger picture of how everything fits together. It's not about fitting into your skinny jeans this fall. It's just, like, I just want to be better than I was yesterday.
Right. Totally. And that's a good way to frame it. And that's not to say you ignore goals. I think they're very closely related, the goals and the process. You need to be looking at both of those things and balancing them. But I think it used to be only goal oriented in the beginning, and now the balance has shifted to a much more healthy balance to include and focus a lot more on the process, like you said.
Yeah, little sports psych vernacular for y'all. So the outcome goals, I think are what CrossFit has primarily been more dominated by, right? Like what is the fastest time I can achieve, or how heavy can I lift this particular weight, and then versus what we're talking about is the process goals, and even this sort of middle ground of performance goals that are ultimately much more individualized than general outcome goals, in which maybe we're grouping everyone together. And my experience with the mastery method has been that it does a really good job leveraging all three of those: outcome goals, process goals, and performance goals. Do you find that process difficult working with clients to help them see the different avenues of measurement that can be much more multifaceted than than just how fast did I go, or how heavy did I lift? Is kind of helping them exist more in that gray area of the process a difficult one? And what have you found to be helpful to get people to embrace that more?
It can be. I mean, it's definitely challenging. We as people are really complex, and we're also unique. So everyone ticks a little differently. And I've found, it's easier for certain people to do one thing and very hard for them to do another. And so what I mean by that is, I'm just going to make a really simplistic kind of exaggeration. Is sometimes I like to think of it as, someone competes way too much and doesn't know how to be reined in and pulled back and focus on the process. But then someone else might only care about the process and really doesn't care about any type of metric or goal or competitive performance or outcome. And that person needs to be pushed more. So that's the challenge is, and there's everything in between.
Right.
There's a whole spectrum. So the challenge is in helping people shine in kind of their comfort zone, their wheelhouse, but also showing them that it's okay and that they can get a lot out of things outside their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And being more competitive where they're not comfortable being competitive, and being more disciplined where they'd rather just go balls to the wall all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I develop that what the individual needs. I mean, is it just a matter of, I've been teaching and coaching for so long that I'm able to figure it out? Or, how did you develop that mastery?
I
think I only caught the last couple seconds.
It cut out a little bit. I think what Alex said was, how do you develop? How have you, or even how would someone else work on developing that mastery of being able to assess where someone is at in that process of being more practice oriented or being more competition oriented or mental toughness oriented, and helping them navigate the through those different lanes that maybe one they're more comfortable with and others they're not.
I think it's definitely really going to depend. Definitely depends on each individual situation, but I think what needs to happen first and foremost is the student or the client needs to understand and recognize and even agree that they might want to pursue some of those other things that they're not as good at or familiar with. So it's one thing for a coach to think they see something in a student, but you also don't want to be how much can you really judge? You got to talk to the student and get their input and just have an honest conversation. So I think in an ideal situation, once you have developed a strong enough relationship with a client, then you can get into those things and ask them, hey, here's what I see. I see that you're very, very comfortable on these slow, methodical days, and you're cautious, which is good, to go harder, but there could be some value, and I'm going to do my best to help keep you safe. There's going to be value pushing yourself harder and getting a little bit uncomfortable, and are you willing to try that? And sometimes I'll tell like use my story as an example. I'm personally, it's a lot easier to pull me back than to push me. Mm-hmm. So my coaches, like when I'm in class, I'll ask the coaches hey, here's what's going to happen. This is what I do. This is what I default to. I default to slacking off when I get uncomfortable, even though I know I'm capable of pushing harder anyway. And today is a day where I would like to push harder. Can you help me? So if having more conversations like that, I think is where you can really start to help with those things.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome too, your self-awareness of your own patterns, because I think so many of our clients come to us and they're just like, fix me. It's like, okay. But it really is a two-way street, but also developing with everything that you do with them for them to have the self-awareness of their strengths and weaknesses and what they really want out of the relationship.
Right. Totally. Because I mean, our job is to really, as coaches, we've got to help them achieve what they want, not necessarily, not just what we want for them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think,
and it all,
go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say, it really all comes down to what's your relationship like with who you're coaching? Because there are some people that, like when I'm coaching a group class, there are people in the class that I don't have as good of a coaching relationship with. And there are things that I won't push them on or bring up with to them that I would think would be more appropriate to bring up if we had more of a coaching student relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally.
So there's a lot of context to just who are you dealing with and what's the context of your interaction with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. That observation. I know I've experienced where, like testing the waters. If I'm coaching a class, especially, with people I haven't worked with before, and just trying to play off of that vibe as best as possible, because, all the fixes I may want to try and bring about with, the best intentions, may land really poorly because that rapport hasn't been established. And potentially, if I do that, I've really I've lost an opportunity that could have developed if I perhaps was aware enough to rein myself in, to kind of say, let me sort of see, let me just observe, let me see where they're going to go, and try to play off of more of the way they interact with me. Like there's definitely those clients that are much more proactive about, like, hey, can you come over here? Like, can you look at this? And like those are my favorite, because then like I don't even have to read the situation. But then those that that question mark, like those that really don't say that but perhaps want it, and then those that don't say it, and they don't say it because they in fact they don't want it.
Right.
And like you said, the even this extra layer of everybody in the class has their own context that they have walked into the gym with that day, regardless of how you may want to contextualize the class as a whole. And now it's very much like a Tetris game to try and figure out where their context is going to fit with your context, as well as your context for the class as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I just want to add one thing to that too. I think as coaches and teachers, because I spend most of my time regularly actually in a yoga studio, but all of these same things come up as well. And new teachers, and I mean even older, more seasoned coaches and teachers, we walk into a room and we want to impart all of our knowledge in that instant to every student. But it's kind of, you have to build a relationship. It's like dating. You're not going to like throw it all out on the table in the first date. You have to get to know the person and, their style and what they're willing to accept and what they're ready to hear, and drip out the content, each date, rather than lay it all out there in the first experience.
Totally.
Matt, have you had much experience or any experience with observing other gyms' practices? Have you spent much time taking classes in other gyms, or any hands-on experience that gives you some perspective as to how what you guys are building within CrossFit LA and the Mastery Method compares and your thoughts about what you guys are doing versus other gyms?
A little bit. I've been to when I travel back home to New England, where my family still is. There sometimes I'll go to a CrossFit gym there, and it's definitely different.
Yeah.
That's not good or bad.
Right.
I've yet to been to a gym where they think about more of the complete fitness that we think about at our gym, and or at least it doesn't feel like it's coming out in the class that I'm in.
Yeah, right.
It's a little bit more about this is a workout. How good can you be at this workout? Go.
Yeah, right.
So, but I don't have. It's not like I've been to a ton of other gyms either. So, I would say my sample size is definitely small.
Yeah.
More studies are needed.
More studies are needed. We'll do a 10-year study visiting 370 gyms.
So I'm curious as to the birth of the mastery method, because is this something that you did on your own? Like, where did it come from? What was the inspiration?
The birth of the mastery method came out of Kenny Kane's womb.
So to say it differently, Kenny Kane birthed it.
Kenny Kane birthed it after 9 months of it being inside him. It came out. It was a natural birth.
Thank God. Don't need some artificial hospital bacteria infecting.
Hey.
You know.
Hey now. But what was your role in it?
Yeah. Well, Kenny tells the story better than I do. The beginning of the story. So I'll try to tell you the background pre-me, and then I'll tell you how I jumped on board. Kenny first. Well, Kenny owns CrossFit Los Angeles. He's been coaching and personal training for like a couple decades, I think. His whole life, and multiple sports. He's got a very diverse set of diverse coaching experience, really diverse background. And he started programming he was coaching and working with the competitive team at CrossFit Los Angeles. And that was back when CrossFit LA had a team that qualified for the CrossFit Games and competed at the CrossFit Games in Carson. And they all the Southern California Regional one more time after that. So that was his baby. You know, he coached that team, he programmed for them. And through that whole process, he kind of culminated everything he knew up to that point in his life to help this team as best as he could. And he started his programming template and his context template, which is essentially a template that has different types of context days. We have our practice days, where we shift the priority off of things like time, speed, intensity, and put it more on quality, technique, and skill development, patience, discipline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the bulk of the program. That's the backbone of the program. He made it that way because he wants to kind of mirror what a sports team does. You know, a sports team practices all week and then competes at their game that weekend. You know, unless you're a baseball team, you compete every night. But there's also room for competition. So part of the program has the competition context days, and these are days where the priority or the balance of your priorities are shifted more towards time, speed, performance, and execution, and what can you do? How good can you be at the workout? Basically, is one of the priorities on those days. And then there's a small part of the program that has some context days that are for mental toughness, and these are days to build the students' perseverance and resilience. So you're not going to practice your movements on that day. You're not going to push yourself as hard as you can and compete and try to perform. You're going to get through an enormous amount of work however you can, whether it's going to take you, you want to work as hard and quickly as you can, but the priority is not on speed. It's on, can you face a massive challenge, a large amount of physical work, a large amount of exhaustion, and still just keep moving anyway. Mm-hmm. So he used this program for the team, and it eventually became the program for the whole gym. When as a gym, we decided to move a little bit away from competitive CrossFit. So we really didn't have a team anymore training to be competitive in CrossFit events. And we just wanted to create a great, large, diverse community of people who could all participate in the same program. So the Mastery Method program model and coaching model became the CrossFit LA programming model and coaching model.
That's awesome.
And that's how I came on board. Kenny needed someone to help with the programming, and it just worked out that I was available and passionate for it and understood it quickly. So we just started working together, hours and hours and hours working together on all of CrossFit LA's programming. And then he gradually started handing it off to me until I took it over entirely. And through that process, we've been doing this as a gym for about 3 years now, maybe a little more.
Wow.
People heard about what we were doing. It was different than what a lot of gyms were doing for their class programming. And just people found out about it, and people wanted to know more about it. People wanted to do it too. So Kenny and I were sitting in his office once. We're just like, well, let's teach them how to do it. Let's have a workshop. So we created a workshop. It's a two-day workshop, and we had people come to CrossFit LA and spend the weekend with us. And we taught them what we know and what we've tried and what we've found works to do this program of context training programs and context coaching. And that's where it's just taken off from there. We're teaching more and more workshops, and that's how I met Jared.
Yeah,
Jared came to, what was that? We had our second workshop.
I believe so. Yeah, and we've talked about this on other podcast episodes. I think actually it was right after I attended that Alex and I recorded the first podcast episode. So yeah. It was very fresh in my mind, and for me, what stands out most about it is how Kenny describes it as having that coaching leverage, and I like this concept a lot, and particularly to emphasize this concept expanding outside of CrossFit or even the gym space. But being able to have leverage by holding context and having whomever you're working with understanding the natural ebb and flow of changing context. Right. And I think what what resonated so much for me is like my difficulty coaching classes and feeling like I was really always my context was always practice. And yet I was coming up against so much resistance with most of the clients in the class, because they only understand and realistically we're only introduced to CrossFit through this lens of competition. That every day, all the time, and this is where I feel like the high intensity piece often dilutes the message and particularly the process. And what was most frustrating for me was feeling like, well, it's one thing if those that are truly competing, want to kind of live here all the time, but I'm worried about the average gym goer, whom, like we mentioned in the beginning, their goal set was probably very different walking in. Like they probably just wanted, had maybe very aesthetic related goals, or I want to lose weight. I have this wedding coming up. But I think where CrossFit, where a lot of gyms fail the client some ways in, is that they never really have that initial conversation with the client to kind of understand where they're coming from and what their goals are. And what quickly happens is these goals that the client had, which were never voiced, become forgotten as the client kind of just becomes indoctrinated into the community rah-rah spirit of Fran times and back squat PRs and max kipping pull-ups, which is great, and I think it's fantastic that there is emphasis on those numbers that are more tangible. But at the end of the day, we forgot to acknowledge them as individuals and perhaps help them really grow as a complete person, by being able to help them embrace these different types of intentions for the day. And coming back to this concept of leverage, I feel like that can be difficult to do if there isn't this overarching principle for the day, or there's not an understood fluctuation to be able to say, hey, like we've got a competition day coming up, next week or later this week. With that in mind, I really need you to try and embrace and do your best to be disciplined about reining it in. You can let loose. This is on the schedule. I promise you, it'll be there. Right. And building that trust, and also the community and the accountability based on everyone kind of knowing like, hey, this is the intention, and we want to work best as a team to respect that and honor it.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And just talking to the client and explaining that up front has already, there's leverage there, because they understand what they're about to walk into. When it's a brand new client and you tell them this is how we coach and this is how we program and this is why, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna come.
Yeah, right.
They know there's gonna be different things that they're gonna see, and they know why. And a big reason why that we talk about is, without the context that we're using, usually these high intensity workouts become unsustainable.
Yeah.
Because physically your body can't handle redlining all the time. Eventually you won't be able to keep doing that. But more importantly, think about what that takes internally, like mentally and emotionally, to put yourself on the red line and keep yourself there every single time you work out. That's exhausting physically, mentally, and emotionally. So with the fluctuating context, everyone participating in the program has the opportunity to have that rise and fall, or the ebb and flow, I think you said a minute ago, Jared, of high physical intensity and high mental intensity, high emotional intensity sometimes, and also low physical intensity, low mental intensity, low emotional intensity sometimes, and everything in between. And that rise and fall is going to create a much more sustainable program and experience that people can participate and enjoy for a really long time. And in the process, they're basically mimicking, or we're trying to mimic, just a life. A life has this rise and fall of different challenges and demands. A lot of days might not be demanding at all, and other days might be totally mentally taxing or an emotional struggle. And so just as life has that rise and fall, we kind of want the program to also have that rise and fall.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I was just reading about for down regulation and relaxation and vagal tone, and they're talking about the variability of that through breath work and taking a cold shower in the morning. But we talk cardiovascular, like why do people exercise? Oh, well, you're trying to build heart rate variability and the benefits that come from that. And then we totally have, I think, culturally, this blind spot to the idea that the entire exercise fitness thing should be contextualized with that variability. And that's so super awesome because I found too, like, I can't keep up with fitness programs that are just go, 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 go all the time. And I'm sure that most other people can't as well, which is why they burn out or they get injured and then we don't see them for months at a time. So that's really, really awesome what you guys are doing. I am curious, when you do your programming, is the different elements that you described, are those across a week, or is it a longer, like a 10-day or a 2-week or within the month? How long is that cycle of the, like the mindset piece and the competition and the performance and all that?
We actually follow a 14-week model. So we write a program, and we think of it as one cycle, lasting 14 weeks. And we start by identifying and just thinking about where are we as a gym, where are we as a community, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, where could we go, where could we, what direction could we move, and just use that information to have some handles to help us plan. Okay, let's do this. What are we going to do right now then? If say we want to have more of our community doing muscle ups, but our community isn't very strong pulling, what can we do now to improve their pulling strength? So that maybe later we can help them do muscle ups, which is an amazing expression of body weight strength on the brains. So that's how we start thinking about a cycle, and then we construct our first week as a test, where we're going to test. We do 5 days in our program. We program for the whole Monday through Friday week, and then we have an alternate program on the weekends. So our Monday through Friday program is that first test week for that cycle is going to include a glycolytic test. It's going to include a power or phosphagen test. It's going to include an oxidative test. We always have a body weight workout, and then we do a lactate shuttle test. And we construct the workouts to fit those parameters. We use the skills that we would like to be training in the cycle. And then we program 12 weeks of training based off of that. And then we retest the same workouts in the 14th week. The varying contact, competition, practice, mental toughness, we have 60% of the program be practice, 30% of the program is competition, 10% is mental toughness. So we just spread out each of the contexts throughout the program in a good. We balance it out across the entire thing, so it's not, we're going to do 10% mental toughness in the first week. We'll spread that 10% out. We'll spread the 30% of competition days out, and the practice days. And so as you come over time, whether you're coming every day or you're coming to our program a few times a week, we know all of our students are going to see all of those contexts, and it will still average out for them a 60-30-10. So that's how we spread it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, because in some of the gyms I've been to, it was, well, every Wednesday gymnastics day. And so if you didn't come to the gym on a regular basis, which my schedule didn't allow for, I missed out on pieces. And so I didn't feel like I was getting that full picture. So it's really awesome, setup that you guys have and that you're teaching others. That's really cool.
Yeah. And the, the gymnastics every Wednesday model, that there's a lot of value in that too, to have that consistency. So what you're doing every week on the same time. But we, like you said, if you're going to have people who have it in a schedule that's not consistent, then varying it out every week is going to work probably better for most of those people. But they both have their pros, they both have their cons, and no system's going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Digging in more to the numbers, what advice would you give coaches, other coaches, about gathering, compiling, and using data to inform their practice with clients? Do you feel like a lot of coaches do that well, or a lot of coaches don't do it well? Or are some coaches more intimidated? How would you, if you were consulting another coach on really trying to better get a handle on the use of number analysis, what advice would you offer?
I think like the number analysis aspect is a massive undertaking. So if you really wanted to analyze the data of all your clients, you'd be writing down every number, and you'd have to have some great ways of analyzing the data. And there's a lot of variables you don't know about. If I'm looking at your numbers, Jared, and I see that your back squat went down, then I'm going to have to look at, okay, well, now I have to go look at his attendance numbers. Did his back squat go down because of attendance? Because he wasn't here enough? Did his back squat go down because he didn't follow the prescribed percentage that we programmed for back squat? Maybe he was too scared to go as heavy as he should have, or maybe he was feeling great, so he went heavier than the recommended percentages, and that ended up working against the student. So it's hard to just, it's hard. The numbers are hard. There's a lot going on. We usually make a lot of our decisions based on observation. And we include all of our coaches in that conversation. So even though I'm writing all the programming for our gym, that doesn't mean we're not all talking. Okay, right. What are you guys seeing in class? Where are your students at? What concerns are your students bringing to you? What do you think we need to work on? What weaknesses are you seeing? So a lot of our actions and decisions are based on the coach's observations and things and some helpful feedback we might be hearing from the students. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a great reminder of how much more qualitative it needs to be, and that's not to say that the numbers aren't important, but you made a great point of how once you start going down that rabbit hole, there's infinite questions to be asked of all the different ways in which the numbers they depend on one another to determine that outcome.
Right. And not to say that it can't be done. And that's something we've talked a little bit about our gym is seeing what we can do to compile. We've got a lot of historical data now.
Yeah.
We record everything that our students do. So the numbers are there, and we could definitely perform a lot of analysis on those numbers. And we've talked about, okay, what do we want to do with these numbers? What can we learn from them? So there is something to be said, and there is definitely something you can learn by looking at it.
Would you agree that you have more of a affinity for programming than other aspects of coaching, or not necessarily?
I don't know.
Do you feel like
yeah.
the title of like head programmer, does that best capture the essence of Matt Cipolla? Do you feel like there's more to be told to that story?
I would tell people I'm a coach.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that I write all the programming for the gym. One of the cool things about our gym is we're all coaches.
Yeah.
But each coach kind of has their thing.
Right.
One of our coaches runs the kids program. One of our coaches runs a women's program and does more blogging. And so each coach has kind of added to what they do, what they're doing, the thing that just really resonates with them and they're really passionate about.
Got it.
So that thing for me is programming. I love doing it. I love thinking about it. It's such a puzzle to solve. You know, because you could program so many different ways, and what is the right way to program this workout? Like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But it's not. The two are so closely related. The time I spend programming, the things I learn programming, make me a better coach, and the time I spend coaching and what I learn coaching is making me a better programmer. So it all falls under the same umbrella of just coach.
Right.
Mm-hmm. How far in advance do you do the programming for the 14-week cycles?
That depends.
The night before, Matt? Really?
Yeah. The night before.
It's a long night.
We usually start talking about, okay, what's happening this cycle. I would say maybe a month in advance of when it's going to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then the closer it gets, the more concrete we're getting on decisions and deciding, okay, let's focus more on this over something else. We start getting an idea of what our priorities really will be. And as it gets closer, then that test week will come out. So that's the first thing we produce. Okay, we need that week of testing. This is what we're going to test our people on. And this is what we're going to get them better at. And then the programming can just fall into place after that.
Right, once you determine what they need to work on.
Exactly. We're also always talking about when we're deciding, okay, what are we going to do in our next cycle? We're still talking about what might we do in the cycle after and the cycle after. So we always have in the back of our heads, and like we always have notes. We always have an idea of things we're going to get to. So you could say months in advance, many months in advance. Technically, we plan a couple, like one thing maybe.
Right.
So it depends. It does depend on the cycle too.
Yeah, that's really interesting though, just to hear the process, because like you're saying, one piece and then the rest falls into place. Sometimes that's how I'll plan my next class. Well, I want to get to this one thing, and then here's the 5 to 7 other things I can pull in for that 1 hour that'll get us to where we want to go.
Right.
But you are inspiring me to make this broader picture of programming instead of teaching a class at a time.
Mosaic.
Come to the workshop, Alex.
I know. I'm getting so pumped. I'm really considering it.
Well, we also leave room for. We want to see how the cycle's going too. We want to get the program out there, get our people doing it. So we won't totally wrap up every loose end in advance. I'll still be writing some. I'll be writing workouts for later in the program as during the beginning of the program, but it's already based on the plan. Like a pretty concrete plan that we already established before it started.
Yeah, just measuring where they are and how it's going.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the my favorite parts about coaching too, is that you're constantly like, observing and reviewing and then making decisions. And where people can get into trouble is when they just walk in with their own plan and come hell or high water, we're going to get through it. Because there are these people that we're responsible for, and their bodies and their minds that are going to have to live with whatever it is that we're putting them through, and to be very sensitive to that.
Right. It's going to be a very fluid process.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, piggybacking on that, though, I'm curious, because I remember, we had this conversation when I took the seminar. Sometimes based on the algorithm that you've come up with, you have a lot planned for that day, right? Like, especially if it's a practice day. How do you deal with, running into a situation where, okay, I'm walking in as the coach to coach this class, and I have this agenda based on, and not just, based on year programming that is in lieu of context, but like it's been heavily thought out, and there's, psychology pieces brought in, but still, I find, today 6 people came, and they're actually all, really struggling with this one piece, or they're really sore from the day before. Are you able to make room for those very on the fly adjustments, and the ability to reconcile with the very present circumstances versus what is been embedded in the programming for that day?
Totally. And I think that comes down to your coaching intuition, which can only be developed over time. So I can even see, like in myself, I'm a little better at handling those situations now than I was last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm going to be even better, in the future at handling those situations. That's something I'll continue developing with experience as I continue to do this and continue to get be exposed to coaches who have been doing this longer than me. But the way I see it now is I try to take a personal training approach to a pre-programmed group class. So you might have I'm going to walk into a class at our gym with the workout already decided in advance. I have to teach that workout.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to be there. And so I need to be flexible with, okay, who's my audience now? How can I best apply this to my current audience? And if you need to call a quick audible,
Mm-hmm.
If you realize at this point, for whatever reason, this certain skill point needs to be heavily focused over anything else, spend more attention there. I remember we just had a staff meeting this week, and one of the workouts in our program had 3 parts to class, and it opened with some lifting. I think it was clean and jerk. And in the staff meeting, one of our coaches said, "Hey, I hope you guys don't mind. In 2 of my classes, I moved the clean and jerk to the end of class." And we're just like, cool.
Blasphemy.
It's like, you did what was no, you did what was best for
Totally
your audience. She felt like where their bodies weren't ready to open that hour.
That's fantastic.
With clean jerking. So she just had to make the decision on the fly. We're doing this at the end of class. And that to me is what a good coach does. You honor and respect what's already been planned, because a lot of pieces had to be orchestrated to put together the final product. But you also need to be able to make an audible like that when I've got some people in front of me and this is what's best for them, so we're going to make a slight adjustment.
I like to think of it like a musician. I'm this rock star. I'm playing Philly one night, right? Like, and I have this set list, but Philly, they have like a little different energy. So I have to, maybe I need to lead with, a little like two like heavy jams back to back before, like I do like a slow song, and I can't just be sticking to the agenda just because, that's what the sound engineer, has the plan for. He needs to be able to
producer and agent's gonna kill you.
Yeah, but it's for the fans at the end of the day.
Are you a musician, Jared? For real?
I am. I play guitar and
Nice.
enjoy singing and writing songs.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, we got a little sample of his
How did
singing.
that not come out? Well, we have a sample of. Do you sing? You should record and sing a theme song for the podcast.
Yeah, the intro.
Yeah,
Season two.
Season 2. Yeah, maybe, perhaps a theme song. Interesting.
No.
All right. Well, coming up in kind of the final minutes or so, this last quarter, I want to do sort of Tim Ferriss inspired, more rapid fired questions. So feel free.
Your face just dropped.
Feel free to answer these as short and concise or as expanded as you want, and we're just gonna see where this goes. Okay. All right. So, what element, characteristic, or personality trait do you bring to coaching that people would least expect or maybe see as odd?
Sometimes I like to sing songs when I'm saying, when I'm just telling someone something, and it goes like this.
Nice.
Today we're gonna back squat.
See, I'm telling you, there's I think there's like a musician in all us coaches.
Yep.
That the performer aspect, that performance anxiety. Sometimes I like to contextualize my own experience like as a stand-up comic. Like maybe I'm going to tell a joke that's not really going to land for everyone, or in my warm-ups. Yeah, the hecklers. Yeah. Oh man, there are definitely those for sure.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes I feel like in my warm up I want to try out some new bag of tricks and kind of see where the chips fall. All right, number 2. Any continuing education you are currently pursuing, and or what type of continuing education or resources would you recommend to other coaches? It doesn't necessarily have to be fitness related.
Well, I want to take the yoga tune-up things. After Alex came to our gym, and totally just blew us away with her mobility stuff.
Woo.
I was thinking, okay, I might have to look into those certifications.
Do you still have the yoga tune-up balls that I gave you?
Yeah. I haven't used them much since you gave them to me, but after Saturday,
nice.
They've been like my best friend.
Dusting the dust off of his therapy balls, ready to put him to use.
You know what's great about the therapy balls is that as a coach, it's easy to tell if someone's used them or not.
Yeah.
Has the logo worn off?
Yep.
Oh, your tag's still intact. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You haven't taken the tag off? What are you? Like, there's no refund.
Oh man. No, I'm going to be using them a lot now. Thanks to Alex.
That's awesome.
What's your biggest coaching pet peeve?
the answer I don't know.
Oh.
I'll elaborate on that.
Okay, yeah.
When I asked someone who has been coming to our gym for a long time, what's your 1RM of something?
Yeah.
That we've done plenty of times.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
They still don't know.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. At least write it down. I always say, could you write it down? And next time you say, I don't know, like run to your bag and open your bag. And
Right.
then
That's
it drives me insane.
That's a good one.
Insane.
Okay, here's kind of a curveball. What is it about tiny squirrels that make you smile?
What?
Nice, Jared.
I did some research. Cipolla.com has a blog, and sometime a recent blog post, he posted a picture of a tiny squirrel that made him smile. And I was just curious, what was it about you that tiny squirrel happened to be your spirit animal that day?
Well, Jared, you told me before we started recording that I could also ask you questions, right?
Yeah, do it.
So my question to you is, did you smile when you saw the squirrel on my blog?
I certainly did. Yeah.
I did.
And why did you smile?
I think I smiled because tiny animals are just cool across the board.
Nice. My favorite thing about
go ahead.
squirrel was, so he's standing up on his back, on his hind legs, I guess would be the correct term, in the picture, right?
Yeah.
And he was standing there for quite some time, just chilling on two legs, just staring at me, maybe. It was amazing. I've never seen a squirrel just standing still for that long on only two legs. So it was awesome.
That is cool. It almost, it most certainly warranted the picture when he was posing for so long.
Totally.
He or she. Favorite coaching memory?
Favorite coaching memory?
Or one that comes to mind.
This isn't my... Rather than favorite, can I tell you my most recent?
Yeah, please.
Okay. This is just awesome. It was like a week and a half ago. We were doing front squats. It was 2 front squats, and there was the dude corner.
I know that one.
Alex, it was the same corner that the dude corner was in for the mobility workshop. It was the exact same spot in the gym.
Creatures of habit.
Some of the exact same people were there. And one of the dudes did his first front squat, and I'm heading toward them, and it was atrocious. And so I sprint across the room. I literally jump in front of him, which you don't really do to people who are lifting, but I did. And I yelled, "Stop!" And I yelled out 3 cues. I said, "Do this, do this, do this." And he did all 3 of them. He did it. And his squat it was like night and day. And every guy there was just like, "Whoa! What just happened?" One of them comes running over. "Okay, I'm next. Can you do that for me?" And I was like, maybe. It was funny. It might have been a you had to be there moment, but we were all just cracking up.
No, I like it. It's
magic happened. The magic happened. Sometimes you're totally like tapped into what's happening and what you're trying to achieve, and it just like comes through you.
Well, he just kind of somehow he heard what I was envisioning in my head, and he did it. I was like, dude, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Good job.
Finally.
Good job.
Somebody listen.
Yeah, no, that is beautiful. All right, couple others. I'm really interested with this podcast about the struggles because I feel like that isn't talked about much, and I like the idea of within this concept of behind the podium. Let's peel the veil back and get a better understanding of how people are working through it, and illuminating the fact that people are struggling with this practice and the evolution and refinement of it. What worries you about coaching at times, or what do you struggle with as a part of your coaching practice? Or said differently, and you could answer both. What is there any fitness, nutrition, or psychology related topic that has you most on the fence, and there's more of just a struggle of you trying to eliminate the potential cognitive dissonance as you're trying to make sense of this topic so you can best share it and teach it with others?
I think I'll tell you what worries me about coaching.
Yeah, please.
And I think it's related to one of my coaching struggles. I think I worry that I won't provide that awesome moment that the guy front squatting had as often as I could.
Yeah.
Because it was cool for him. He was pumped.
Yeah.
And it was cool for everyone that was there lifting with him and saw it happen, saw him do that. So everyone was pumped. And I feel like I want to be able to help someone get excited every time they're in a session with me. Whether it's because they learned something or accomplished something or experienced something. And so I think that's also kind of struggle with that, because I know that's not realistic. It's not gonna happen every time. And so forcing it is not going to help. It's only going to hurt. So sometimes that that gets in the way of just being authentic, and just being myself when I'm coaching. Cause I'm thinking like, okay, how can I say this?
Yeah.
To really like give them a great experience,
Yeah. That's
instead
great
of just being myself, know, and let things happen, so.
How can I have a Denzel Washington remember the Titans moment with everyone here in this class?
Every single time
I
open my mouth.
That's kind of what I'm always trying to figure out. Okay, last two. Describe your personal experience with coaches and or mentors and how they have shaped your approach.
Coaches and mentors. Okay. Every coach at CrossFit Los Angeles, past and present. They're the reason I became a coach. I don't think I became a coach. The initial reason wasn't because I was passionate about health and fitness, which I am. But I think the initial reason was because I met the coaches at CrossFit LA, and I was able to participate and be the recipient of the amazing thing that they do and do for their students. And I admired them for that, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to aspire to be like that and do what they did. I take all my classes at CrossFit LA, so I'm coached by every coach there, and they're always helping me.
That's so great.
So I still get to be coached by them every day.
Yeah.
So my mentors, my official mentors would be Michael Stanwyck and Kenny Kane. Michael was my former mentor when I was in the coaching development program at CFLA. He was assigned to me as my mentor. He's the former head coach of CrossFit LA and the co-founder of the Whole Life Challenge. Oh wow. So yeah. Is he still there? No longer coach. No. He doesn't coach at CFLA because he does the Whole Life Challenge full time.
Got it.
But he helped me a lot in my early stages of coaching. He was really thorough, wouldn't let me get away with wouldn't let me get away with anything. If I didn't bring, if I was a little lazy in my preparation, he'd catch that.
That's awesome.
He would force me to be thorough. And then Kenny Kane has been my mentor for several years now, just because he was the head. He took over as the head coach of CrossFit LA. He's now the owner of CrossFit LA. So he's responsible for our development as coaches, and just the fact that we've worked together side by side for so many hours, working on the programming and working on the mastery method and preparing for our workshops. I've been able to just absorb so much from him and all of his experience. So that's my long answer.
That's fantastic. I think it's super awesome to know that you've had such quality people influence, impact, and be a part of your journey. CrossFit LA is a special place.
Yeah, I consider myself really fortunate to have walked into that community. I had no idea what I was walking into.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how things work out. Yeah, and looking back, you're like, wow, that was a good choice I made that many years ago, and funny how it all turned out.
No, I really believe, everything is lined up and works together, and works out.
Yeah.
There's a purpose in everything that's going on around us and everything we're doing. So
100%.
All right, lastly here, what does it mean to you to practice what you preach?
Well, that means a lot of things. One thing I'm really cognizant of is, since I'm a participant in the same program that I coach, I need to participate in such a way that I'm asking my students to also participate.
Yeah.
So usually that looks like being responsible when I'm working out and making sure my priorities are lining up with the intended priorities of the day, depending on the context of the day. So making sure I'm practicing when our workout asks us to practice and our coaches ask us to practice. Making sure I compete when our coaches ask us to compete, so that I can be that example.
What do you find most difficult about that process?
Do you mean like a specific?
In terms, do you have? Are you aware of times where it's more difficult for you to embrace a particular context of the day?
I got you. Okay. Yeah, totally. I think I would have to say there's definitely times when a lot of times I have to be aware of it is on competition days. I think I mentioned earlier, I'm someone that has to be pushed a lot of times. And I like to just work on, I want to execute perfect movements, and so making sure I'm more pushing myself harder when I should be, but also I do have an ego. Yeah, and I am a competitive person.
Right.
So on a lot of our practice days, when it's something I'm really good at, and sometimes I'll be like, yeah, let's go, and I'll start then I gotta remember, like, no, I cannot act competitive right now. Like, that's gonna ruin the class here. Like, everyone's gonna see me do that. So so it's probably more, it might even be more on practice days when I better not do anything but practice today.
Yeah, no, that's so great. I love that self-reflection, and I know it's something Alex and I have talked about before, particularly when training by ourselves, and no one's watching. And are you even last night I went to the gym by myself, and the set I just did was was pretty difficult. Like, but I'm already thinking about adding weight. Like, why?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Totally.
and so and that's something that I would call into question a client that was doing that, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
there's no need. And what is that thought process and the ability to be aware of those same slip ups.
Right.
So
Or with like injuries, or if something's bothering me, or I might be on the verge of an injury,
yeah,
I would never let a client do certain things that would make that worse.
right.
But I'm like the dude. Oh, I'm gonna be fine. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this anyway.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with that too.
Awesome. Well, Alex, any last questions you want to throw in there, or gems?
I do have one last question, which I was holding back. But in addition to the tiny squirrel, one thing I learned about you is that you have a chemistry degree. So I'm curious as to how your chemistry degree has influenced or is currently influencing your coaching.
I do have a chemistry degree. I have two, actually.
Nuts. So crazy.
I don't know if anything. There's definitely things that are directly applicable and transferable. If I'm studying certain biological things, or energy systems, and creating ATP or whatever, that's a chemical equation. I know that.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
so that it's easier to understand things like that. I think the biggest way it helps me is I've been trained very well to be very analytical and scientific in my thinking. And so I approach movement very analytically, and programming very analytically, and that helps a lot. But I also have to remember we don't live in a purely analytical world, whereas there needs to be room for creativity. So when I'm coaching, I need to still be creative, and when I'm writing workouts, I can't follow perfect patterns. Everything makes perfect mathematical sense.
Yeah.
You gotta just be a little artistic when you're constructing a workout and
composing your symphony.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
That's that.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Matt, for your time and being this inaugural guest of ours.
Well, thank you guys.
We appreciate it.
It's definitely I'm honored to be your first guest, and I had it's a lot of fun hanging out with you guys and talking to you guys. So
likewise. Where can we find you on the interwebs? Website, social media?
My personal website, which I should go update, is www.matchup. Don't we all? That's mattcipolla.com. Cipolla. And you can also find us at crossfitla.com or mastery-method.com. That's how you find us. Social media, I'm at MadDog188, MadDog with 1D. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Maybe I should update those too.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Right. And then you can find more info about this podcast at behindthepodiumpodcast.com. We have new episodes and show notes. All the things we referenced in this episode will live there for eternity. And I don't know, Jared, I think that's it.
That is all. Thanks again, Matt. And I look forward to a future round 2.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. If you have enjoyed what you listened to, head over to iTunes and leave us a review. More information on each episode and the podcast in general can be found at behindthepodiumpodcast.com. CrossFit.com. We'll catch you next time.